All right, so today we are in the garage of my good friend Josh Marks and his little sister's boyfriend Logan. Shot a real nice buck last weekend.
Can you give us a look here? Just
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead. Spin around.
That's what we're doing the hard work.
So that's the garage.
Yep.
JB's about to clean
That's
up
the
this
killer right
side
there,
for
Logan.
you.
So pork actually, I was gonna do one whole half to show you how to take apart. Like if I do one half, then you just replicate the other side. But pork got a little antsy in the pantsy, and
Eagles are coming on soon.
well, yeah. So I mean, Logan has to go back to college. Like I'm holding these guys up, but I wanted to do a little video here. So I'm just gonna do one hind quarter here. We already got it pretty well cleaned up on the top here, but I like to just square stuff off. Oops, yeah, I gotta watch so you can see there. But so we're starting with one hind quarter. Do you have a bowl that I could throw some of that?
Absolutely.
Like little grind meat. And so first things first is like you want a good sharp knife, and if you don't know how to sharpen a knife, I'm not going to go into that right now. There's a ton of videos on YouTube. If you want me to show you some more, I'll show you eventually. I'm still learning myself, but basically, so this is the outside. So this would be the, let me see here, the right hind quarter. Okay, so you're looking at the outside. This would be the inside, like in the, the crotch. I don't know what word to say, but crotch, okay? So basically what you want to do is you want to be taking this apart just by the muscle groups. So you can see here, there's this white line right here. That's a seam, So if I stick my finger up in here, like I can almost lift that up, and then I'll just take the knife and go right down through, boom. And I got a little bit into the meat there, which, it's all right. But you can see here, pork, I'll turn it like this. There's like this spongy stuff right here, and that stuff is like you want to be cutting that. You don't want to do what I did and cut into the actual meat, because that's what you're going to cut into steaks and everything. So I'm just going to work all around, and in that way take it apart at the seams, and then you'll get all your cuts of meat. So the other thing that I learned, and I'm not the best at this yet, but I think I'll be able to do it. Once again, I'm just going to do this off the table. But, and once again, I'm a little bit still learning on this one. But so you can actually, as far as I know, you can take this, and right on the front of the knee here, there's all this, it's probably tendon or whatever. But I'm gonna go straight down through here, maybe. Gotta find the spot. Where is it at? Is it here? And I should be able to go pretty much clean through, and that'll give us a good squared off end. Let's see where. Yep. I think we got her. Yep, there it is. So now, and there's your shank. You can grind that up. I like to put them in a crock pot. I'm going to get this out of the way. Now we'll go back to just taking this apart, working down that seam. I believe there's a gland in here somewhere. Which isn't like in the grain of the meat, but you obviously don't want that. So now as I go, just pulling apart and just working that knife right in the seam and that spongy stuff. Like I said, you can almost just take your fingers, and if you're not sure where it's at, just work it with your fingers, and you don't even really need a knife, honestly, for a lot of it. Anyways, so right here, I'm gonna get all this fatty stuff out of here. Same thing, pulling up on it away, and you see all this spongy stuff there. That's you want to be cutting that and not the meat, basically. And then you're just separating all the muscle groups, and that'll turn into all your different cuts. So now I'm basically just unwrapping this thing around the bone. Okay, let's see here. I got a lot of practice while I was up in Alaska. I spent the first 10-day hunt session in camp. Caleb Stillions, if you've never heard of him, you need to look him up. He's the guy that I go up there to film with, and he produces a series of films called Rise Up. If you search for Caleb Stillions, I'll put a link in the description. But either way, the first week or first 10-day session there, I was in camp because he was taking Glenn Eberly of Eberly Stock out, and they had planned that hunt before Caleb and I met and already had camera guys lined up. So I got to hang out in camp, and part of the thing you do when you're in camp is cut meat. So there was a lot of caribou, a handful of Dall sheep, and we got a lot of practice. So I'm pretty well in mid-season form right now, I would say. But now it's just a matter of separating all this. So this one here, this little guy off the side, this one, I forget, one of these is the top round and this other one's the bottom round. I know that they also call this one the silver side because it's got one side with silver skin on it. But those are your major groups. And then this little guy here off the side of the silver side is going to be your eye of round. This one gets a little bit tricky because the seam sort of disappears on you. So I just always try and do my best to, I think we got it pretty good there. You can see there, I'm just using the weight of the bigger piece to kind of find where it separates, and then I might not be quite perfect on there, but okay, so this right here, that's going to be your eye round. This one right here, that's going to be your silver side. And then we'll get to the other two here. Now these ones here, you can see a little bit anyways. Let me get rid of this first. And that darker meat, that was just from it hanging in the cooler. It hung for a week, and when it's in the cooler, that outside, like when you dry age something, for example, if you left it in for longer, it forms like a hard rind. That's just from the air hitting it. So probably want to just trim that portion off, which I'll get to here in a second once I get this loose. Once again, I think I'm just going to pick up on it. It's got a bit of a just thin layer of like flap steak type meat on the outside that I'm going to get rid of here. As I said a couple times already, you want to pull up and you see that spongy stuff, and that's where you want, I got into the meat there a little bit. That's what you don't want to do, but when you have a sharp knife, sometimes you might nick it. Not a huge deal because we're probably just going to cut this into steaks anyways. All right, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. Just gonna free up some of this nonsense here. Flim flam, as Chancey Walters would call it. Okay, now we're getting down to the actual, like the femur bone here. And you can see on this cut here, this is, I believe, the sirloin tip it's gonna be, but you can see all that silver skin or whatever tendon that's attaching right to the bone. So I'm just gonna lift that up with my finger underneath it and then get the knife in and just run it down through. And then basically you just do your best, just to cut as close as you can. Sort of like if you're filleting a fish, you want to angle the knife down towards the skin This, you want to angle the knife down towards the bone, so you're cutting towards the bone and not losing any meat, and you can get it real nice and clean like this. Pretty much get everything. I don't, put so much work into hunting. You kill a buck or a doe or whatever. Last thing you want to do is waste any of that good meat. So you can see here, I'll try and get it out so you can see it. Twist on this. And I'm just taking that knife right along the bone, and it's coming away. As you pull away, it'll stretch it out, and you can just shave those muscle, just like you're shaving your face. You're shaving that meat right off the bone. You don't want to cut into the meat, like I said, probably 50 times already, if at all possible. And you want to get all that off the bone. Just keep working that knife around the bone. My nose is running. There we go. Essentially, we're just cutting that bone right out of the whole middle of everything. Boom. And once you get down towards the lower end of the bone, you're going to run into a little bit of fat and all this stuff, and I'm just going to trim all that off. Boom. Boom. Now, I even like to just scrape as much as you can off, and we'll just throw that in the ground meat or whatever then. As I said, a lot of people are probably a little bit quicker than me, but I guarantee that I'm going to get it cleaner than you. So I'd rather take a little more time and get everything you can off of it. So they gave me some crap for being slow when I was in Alaska. I was also out of practice, but yeah, either way. So here you go. This one here has some extra. I mean, you could leave that all in one piece, but I like to just make it nice and clean. So we'll just trim that off. And then, all right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this bone in the bone bucket. And then all this flim flam here, that's a little bit that we could put in the grind meat. There's a little bit of meat on there too, but really venison meat, you don't want to keep the fat on it. That's all fat there. So now I'm going to show you what we ended up with here. Get these knives out of the way. There we go. I thought that was missing. So yeah, these are your major cuts here. Once again, I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure this guy here is your bottom round. This is like the sirloin tip roast. You can do that sucker. Medium rare. Obviously, we're going to want to clean up a bunch of this fat and silver skin and whatnot. So sirloin tip right here. Eye round. I believe this is the bottom round, and I believe this is the top round. I do know they also call this the silver side, but that's how you do it. And then we have a little bit extra here that you can do whatever. You can chunk it up. You can, make it ground meat. You can do whatever. But that's how it's done, son. I was so busy cutting, I forgot to take a little sip of the beer. There we go. Pork, you hit record, didn't you?
What?